on Sniper 4, confirm clear to descend. A-Drift. Sniper 1, double target is Sniper 4, Bravo, 65. 20 below. Sniper 4, targeted broad, 250, 20 miles, 5,000 low. South Fairfall, just over the ridge. Engage. Sniper 4, confirm clear to descend. A-Drift. Sniper 1, double target is Sniper 4, Bravo, 65. 20 below.
This is not a toothpaste, it's a revolution for your teeth. Remineralized, strengthened teeth, all natural ingredients, essential oils, minerals, salts, Alphabetic Dental Solutions System. That's alphabetic.com/civilization. You know, we're always trying to bring you the best products here that we think will enhance your life, especially if supply chains break down further, or if there's some disruption in our lives here. It seems in the news more and more possible, but hey, who knows? Maybe it's a mind game. But what is not is keeping your dental health up. And not a lot of people are talking about this. We always see the storable foods. But what about dental care during these same emergency situations? Will your toothpaste eventually run out? Well, if it does, then what? So like I say, this whole micro gut biome is driven by your oral cavity first. So take a look at what they have, alphabetic.com/civilization. Every purchase you make helps keep our live radio show and podcast on air, bringing you more information just like this. alphabetic.com/civilization. That link is in the show notes below. And as always, I appreciate your valuable time and joining us in this ever and most important conversation as we move forward in our world. Hey everyone, are you ready to grow your own fresh, delicious vegetables, herbs, and flowers this season? If you're looking for the highest quality heirloom and organic seeds, I've got the perfect company for you, True Leaf Market. They've been a trusted seed company since 1974, offering 3,000 types of non-GMO varieties, everything from classic heirloom tomatoes and peppers to rare herbs, microgreens, sprouting seeds, and beautiful flowers. All those seeds are open-pollinated, pure, and perfect for home gardeners or anyone wanting healthy, flavorful produce without chemicals. What I love the most is their huge selection, fast shipping guarantees, plus options for bulk if you're going big. If you're excited to start your garden this year with real, authentic heirloom and organic seeds, click the link in the description box below to check out trueleafmarket.com. You won't regret it. Happy planting, and thank you for supporting the channel and this broadcast.
Please remember to sign up for our show notes. With Civilization Cycle Podcast, you can learn what to expect as society resets. Agriculture, economy, tech, and history all have mappable cycles, and these cycles affect every aspect of our lives. We can navigate the chaos and thrive together with up-to-date news and information. Also, if you like the content we have here on Civilization Cycle, think about fueling the discussions and the show by buying us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Civilization Cycle. And thank you for all the support.
And welcome, and thank you so much for joining us tonight. It is a strange week indeed. We're coming up to 50-year lows in the wheat crop. The panic started, the panic messaging, I should say. Through the mainstream media, the narratives are saying, hey, food's going to get expensive. You might want to panic a little bit. So once the masses are told to panic, it's usually game on at that point. Now we have the hantavirus, which involves mice and rats, and that's also involved in the grain supply. So you can see how international grain shipments might be limited because of the carrier of the virus is actually in the food supply. It's part of the food supply. There's always rats in my, I don't know, thousands of years, it's always around the grains, right? This is all dovetailing in with fertilizer disruptions continue to amplify, fuels getting more expensive. Diesel, the drought, and now the messaging of the same mainstream media telling you the wheat's gone, the viruses are here, now talking about a Godzilla El Nino that's going to disrupt crops further. So Ransom and I talked about this months ago, telling you that this was coming in, and now the media is messaging the same exact things, but the difference is we're just some small creators that were trying to give you the information ahead, and the media only wants the masses to panic when they want them to panic for a reason. They want you to get back into the stripping the store, buying, panic buying all the toilet paper, buying whatever. This time they want you to buy food to try to, in my opinion, make the food supply thinner to get us into a digital rationing system because of the panic ensued because so many people are buying food and the food's going to continue up in price. I mean, we're at the rollover point. It is actually scary listening to agricultural commentators freaking out on the news as we go limit up 2 days, 3 days in a row on the wheat prices, and they just see no end to the drought and looking at never ending, shall we say, declines in this wheat harvest for this year. It's just going to continue down from here. There's not much more rain in the forecast. Spreading to corn. Corn's a heavy feeder with the fertilizer. Just we're looking at the corn crop down, the wheat crop down. So the messaging's out there in all these different arenas and genres. It's coming from the economic media, from the business news side of things. Professional side is hitting it, as well as the normie consciousness side is being pushed to let you know there's a food shortage. At the same time, the mouses are the carriers of the new virus, which is also, just you get into this loop again and again. So thanks for joining us tonight. I was working on the video all day long today to try to put this together before the show tonight. Hopefully can run through some slides with you about how low we go on the food. And Ransom, I appreciate you joining me. Why is the planet's food being turned off? That's the point of the show tonight, is to ask the question. It's being turned off on purpose. Like all these things happening in the Middle East. I know, yeah, you could say Trump, he's trying to stop the Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. Well, they've been doing that for 40 years. So understand, we were at the rollover point of agriculture getting completely smashed last year because of magnetic field declines on the planet, the intensification of this grand solar minimum inbound. And now there's somebody turning off all the agricultural inputs and all the ways that we grow food on the planet on top of all of that. You think they could have waited an extra year or two? If they've been waiting for 40 years, you think they could have waited an extra 1 or 2 to give us more crops? Nope. So something is definitely, putting out my spidey sense here that it's on purpose. It's on purpose. So why is the planet's food being switched off? That's our topic for tonight. Ransom, thanks for joining me. I'm going to readjust the camera while you do that there. Welcome to the show, everyone. I'm over in Taiwan. It's still the morning for me. It's 10 a.m. I was up at 4 trying to get the video done because I want to run through the slides tonight.
So you got any weird nature things going on over there?
Anywhere, like which one?
In Taiwan, like is there like anything off that people are noticing? So down here in
you have no idea.
Yeah.
The mouse plague that's in Taipei is astronomical. Like they get mice up there. Okay, so this is another thing when I was talking about and saying that, this mice infestation is related to the grain supply. And I was looking at this and I did a whole report. It's for free. Anybody can go out and download it. It's on my Patreon channel over there. I did a full 4-page PDF talking about this exact thing, like how they're going to use the mice and the carriers of the disease to limit global food shipments. When the food gets really low, no government is going to want to send its food out because the citizens are going to be angry. But they're going to have an excuse why they can't let the food go out of the country. Well, having mice that have this virus in it is the perfect way to keep all the global grain shipments at a minimum. So the reason I'm telling you that is this is super tied to mice and rats. So Taipei, currently in Taiwan, is having the craziest mouse plague ever. This is, a major city of 8 million people, and they're being overrun by mice up there. So is this related? Is this going to be a new hotspot for the hantavirus starting around in the Asian, I'm saying here in Taipei? I'm not in Taipei. I'm way south. I'm about 300 miles south down on the south coast. Is it going to be the hotspot of the new virus thing where all the measures will have to be because the mice, and they'll relate everything to mice? See, the connection is everything to stop global grain shipments needs to be connected to mice, mouse, rat activity. And if you have a super hot spot where there's a plague of mice, I'm shit you not, biblical mouse plague up in Taipei. So if it is, then there's suddenly a spread of this virus around in Taiwan because of all the mouses and mice. Would that not be the foundational level to then start to connect all the dots to mice and rats and rodents, and then we go from there into disruption of global grain shipments? Like it has to start somewhere. Just look around, and this is everybody out there, internet sleuths tonight listening to us. If anybody out there knows of any other places on the planet where there's mice plagues, like here, I'm getting some reports of Australia, West Australia, just having crazy mice down there too. So anywhere there's mice and rodent outbreaks, look for these areas to also be the hotspots for the hantavirus or the hantas, whatever you call that one.
Yeah,
They're going to be connected. Watch the dots. The dots are going to be connected somehow, but we need to see like when you start a bamboo fire, you need to start it somewhere. You look for the smoke, right? The smoke is these places that are having weird rodent things. And Ransom, I saw you put something on the screen. Can you go back? What's up in New Orleans down there? And no, everybody, this is not whiskey or something. This is oolong tea, oolong cha, wutang. No sugar in it. So don't be giving me that. You're drinking whiskey at 10 a.m. No, it's oolong cha.
No, this was the reason I asked that is because where we're at, we're getting overrun by grasshoppers, just millions of them everywhere. All of a sudden, they just showed up. Well, some people call them locusts, but we call them grasshoppers around here. The desert variety, I guess, because we had a pretty moist winter and it got warm early, supposedly, but it seems to be more eggs than there would normally be in the season later in summer. Must have hatched because they're just like everywhere. The birds are going nuts. I went outside this morning. It looked like a war zone with birds just swooping out of the sky trying to get as many of those as they could. And then I saw this, millions of termites invade New Orleans. So like there's a lot of weird nature things happening around the world where the animals are doing weird things at the wrong time. I've brought this up periodically over the last couple of years. There's just an increase in sightings of coati or Cody or however you say them. It's a raccoon-like little animal from Central America and South America and Southern Mexico there. But not only that, the animal that follows it to eat it as prey, which is the jaguar, has been showing up in Southern New Mexico and Arizona. Everybody's catching them on their trail cams, on their backyard security footage. So like the animals are all out of whack. It could be something simple like they're blaming the grasshoppers here. It's just, it was a little extra moist this winter. But at the same time, we're in a severe drought. There was too much water, but we're also in a severe drought. And it's fire season, so you can't have any fires. But there, if you have any gardens or whatever outside, they're just getting chewed up right now. Everything's getting eaten, which is good for weed, control. But then at the same time, you look at TV, and they're blaming us, or not blaming us. They're warning us here in New Mexico about the other strain of hantavirus that is local to the Southwest here, which I talked about on the last show, that comes from rodent droppings. And they're warning everybody about spring cleaning. And yes, you can get it here, but it's a different strain than this one. And they are really ramping this thing up, like it's the new, what was it? I didn't want to call
the
it
new old one. Hey, dude, can I throw a little thought at you? The insecticides here for our world have been totally disrupted. There's a minimum 40% reduction in insecticides available for farmers around the planet right now. So in addition to the fertilizer shortages and the crop yield declines from that, we're going to be looking at massive insect damage, like seriously, Egyptian type, biblical, what you mentioned on locusts. There's no way to control that this year. So our planet's completely out of balance. Did it have something to do with declining magnetic field and the movement of animals into different locations? That's another question to ask. But the thing that's happening right now is there's really no way to control the pests on our crops this year. The insecticides are gone. The reason some of the yields are so low in America for our wheat right now is because the GM wheat that they planted, they didn't have any of the herbicides or the other weed killer to spray on top of that to stop the emergence of competition weeds. So there's a decline just because there's more weeds in the field that are eating up the fertilizer that they're applying on it. Because normally with a GM crop, those are made specifically to live through the application of Roundup to kill all the other weeds first, but those little things spring up through the Roundup and still grow. That's why it's called Roundup Ready. That's what the genetic change was, to allow it to live through that chemical that kills everything else. So there's more weeds emerging because we don't have the herbicides. I'm not a fan of any of that. I'm just explaining the real situation on the ground. Modern farming. There's not enough herbicides to stop all the other weeds in the field. There's not enough insecticide. Like 40% of the entire world's production levels of insecticides and herbicides is not coming this year. So, I mean, the insects are going to just go crazy. There's no way to control them. And it's just going to be, we're going to see the 7 plagues of Egypt evolve in front of us here. This is insane what we're about to see.
Well, I just brought it up because somebody said, they're outside in New Orleans or Louisiana, excuse me.
Louisiana.
I used to
That's a good
live there
accent,
for a
Ransom.
while.
You're nearly fluent in Louisianan speak.
No, that dog don't bite. Let you put your hand in the mouth. No, that's what somebody told me. If I asked them if their dog
Talks
their
a
dog
Cajun.
bites.
Shit, you getting all local on a Cajun now, huh?
No, but they were saying they swarm, this time of year in New Orleans. No big deal. I didn't live there long enough to learn the cycles in the way that. But here, yeah, the grasshoppers is what we call them. So no, they're not crickets and they're not cicada. They're the little jumpy, hoppy grasshoppers you see. But out here in the Southwest, they get pretty big, about 1.5 inches. Up to 2 inches. They're big, so they're just flopping around. And these ones here fly. So some places you got the grasshoppers, they just jump. They don't really fly. These ones fly probably 20 feet when they jump. So the birds are just going insane, eating them. So I don't know what that means, but it is funny to me that they're telling us what a severe drought and fire season, but at the same time we just have all of these mosquitoes and fleas and all of this stuff out of season in large numbers here. So that's just my own observation from my little corner in the Southwest. I'm not saying there's a pandemic in the whole world there like this article's talking about. Is it possible that they're doing that? Well, it really feels like that when you look at the media about how they're pumping this up. Matter of fact, I was going to show you this article.
Do you think magnetic field declines have anything to do with these out-of-season insects and this sort of thing, where the actual triggering of them to awaken is being affected magnetically on our planet right now? And I mean, the governments of the world know this too, and they know they can't save much. They're going to burn it all down and extract all the wealth off the planet they can save at one time here. Just saying.
I don't disregard that idea, but I just know that nothing's so simple. I mean, there's always so many contributing factors to the way things are, and people, try to put them all in a pattern, and sometimes you can't because you don't have all of the information of all of the different things that are changing around. So a lot of rain, superheat, magnetic field. I mean, I imagine that you go through cycles of weird combinations of factors that the people living on Earth are the only people that would ever see Earth in that way, just because they just happen to be alive. But this idea of making everybody crazy, worried about it, I was going to point out this article here. This is from Spain. These are people that are going to prison now because they took everybody way too seriously in 2020. They locked their children up. They were scared that they were going to get sick. They had everything delivered. They just kept living in fear for another 4 years after it was over, but they never let their kids out. They never sent their kids back to school, and now they're going to jail because they basically held their children as prisoners because they were worried that they were going to get sick. And then down here in Texas, the Supreme Court gives Dallas judge until Friday to rescind his courtroom mask mandate because people are already going insane, trying to bring the face diapers back.
Yeah, the fear thing too. I mean, the media needs to be culpable. If they're trying to hold all social media responsible for what children are doing, or all these different laws trying to be passed across Europe because of, social media influencing children, they should be also pointing at traditional media on the influence it had on that family or the parents also. I mean, traditional media needs to be blamed just as much for the way society is ripped apart at the shreds and not functional any longer as well. Traditional media, and then Hollywood and all these things, these demonic and just thoughts and ideas, and I mean the goodness of our world has been swiped away and covered in darkness, except for certain points of light and people trying to keep light on this planet. But otherwise, you look at the media machine, it is a darkness machine. The things that are available to see on the net right now would have put people in jail when I was a kid, literally. They would have put them in jail, under the jail, and that would have been just not acceptable in any way, shape, or form. But now it's just like, that's what it is for the cultural society. Before that, it was underground for a purpose, because they found you doing that, they would take you behind the barn and you weren't coming back out. But now that, it's just, I can't believe the entire world's populace is like that. I think most people believe, like I do, there's a small percentage that controls the media as messaging like this is the normal for the world, when in your own instincts, it's not. Absolutely not. But I think they're trying to convince you that that's the status quo, that everybody's doing it. Well, I am here to tell you everybody is not. I mean, almost, I could say everybody I know is not on that demonic realm, not on that dark energy, doing all those horrific things that is just considered normal in that realm that you're seeing on the TV and things. Just not. It's not in my world, and I'm just a regular dude walking through the world. So, am I seeing something different that everybody else is not seeing? This is why it should be called out more. I mean, these media outlets are the very same problem. The movies that we're seeing that are allowed to show all this gore and death and all these crazy things, that, I mean, those would not even have been allowed in the cinemas in the 1970s. If they had a problem with Clockwork Orange, like, oh, it's so bad you can't show a Clockwork Orange. Oh my God, you're going to rip society's going to dissolve if you see people. And now all this stuff we get on the normal movies, man, it's just crazy. It's absolutely insane. Well, I was going somewhere with the point on my rant, but I forgot what I was going, man. I just get into the tizzy sometimes.
Well, it's about how easy it is, because they use all these avenues to plant so many ideas and fears in people's heads that whenever they pop up with one in the real world, people think it may have bigger repercussions than it does, or not enough. They don't take it seriously because they've been desensitized to all of this idea. They're just like, whatever. And think about this. When I was a kid, I remember they had this series that would come out on VHS tape called Faces of Death, right? And it was the only way that you could watch someone die on video at the time. And you would have to go rent it. You'd have to be 18 or whatever, of course, back in the day, to rent the thing. But just think about this idea. You could go to Twitter now and see 10 times more gruesome death from all over the world. I mean, I think I saw probably 4 Indian kids get killed today on the internet. I'm sure they didn't die today, but I just scrolled through it and saw that one from a train, one from riding his bike silly, one collapsed in a mine that they were kicking the walls, and just things like that. And then I see these manufacturing accidents out of China constantly. And then you're seeing people shoot people and stab people and all of these things all over the world. And that's the day-to-day real feed on social media. So I can go there and just see people die. And when I was a kid, you had to, like you said, it was really, taboo to show things that literal or real things, that you would have to go rent a movie and then watch it. And, even that, it was old grainy VHS tape or whatever it was from, even back in the 70s at the time when I was renting it, so it was really old stuff, and it wasn't even anywhere near as gruesome as what I can see on Twitter just any day.
Yeah, let me tell you, I remember seeing a couple of those movies, but they were only at Halloween, and they only showed at certain cinemas, and you had to show ID to go in there. Yeah, that kind of genre of what it was like to even see. And I remember ones where people were buried in an avalanche and they were, digging them out of the avalanche. And that's all you saw. You didn't see the avalanche. Right. You just saw the people getting dug out by the rescue people. And that was like a big scene in the movie, Yeah. And you had to get, ID'd all up. Even back then, nobody ever asked for ID. I mean, I grew up in a world where you barely were asked for ID. If you looked old enough, nobody ever ID'd you. This whole thing about you got to have ID to buy a beer when you look 75 years old is just foreign for me still. That I thought the purpose of ID was to show that you were of age to consume a beverage or buy something, right? But if you visibly look like you're 80, I don't know why the laws now say you have to have an ID to show, to prove that, it's just getting you more and more into the system. Like a lot of people existed outside the system when I was growing up. Like you could literally live without ID and live outside the world system when I was a kid growing up. And there were, that was easier to do than it is today. And I'm sure some of the same that was easier to do back then.
Yeah. I could tell a lot of our audience has watched Faces of Death.
Yeah, I saw some comments coming through too. Right?
Oh God, yeah, that stuff was
horrible. A certain age to understand that movie genre, and it again, it was I only ever had access or was even ever invited with a bunch of guys. We like 6, 7 of us would go, you see Face of Death, because everybody was scared to go see it, and out of peer pressure, you got to go, and then okay, everybody, we'll go in and see it.
Yeah, and that was traumatizing.
Only Halloween only.
Yeah, but it was also traumatizing. You think about it for several months afterwards that you watched. I can't believe I watched that. Then you see that friend again. I don't want to watch your movies anymore, man. No, I'm kidding. But that leads to where we're at. And I actually did have a point with that. And you kind of went right down where I was about to go. In World War II,
euthanasia, that's another one. Oh my, I can't even believe that this is acceptable in our world today.
right?
That this is acceptable, that you're allowing people to make these choices and forcing them into these choices. It's just unreal.
The worst part about it is it's morphing into the government saying when, where, and how,
Yeah.
and not the person or the family. So in World War II, you could go back and they were doing some things, and today everybody will agree that those were horrible. We made, codes about it, and we made laws about it, and we said, hey, you can't do this, that, and the other thing. You can't get groups of people because of whatever reason, and get rid of them. But today, the government is offering very similar programs, and you look at the reasons that they're just expanding it out. And you remember a few years ago, I kept bringing this up because I was like, I can't believe that they're allowing sane people to do this, but okay, they got a terminal illness, whatever. There's some sympathy there, and you think, well, it's their choice. They're adults. They have a problem. But then they expanded it to just people a little depressed, and maybe but now they're just moving it to, what? Let's just go ahead and get rid of kids because you don't want them, because they have a problem, because you don't like it. And we're moving right into the same territory. They just put a new sign on it, a new gimmick or whatever to make you think that it's something different. But really, I mean, think about that. This one's even talking about federal committees are now pushing to extend the MAID to mature minors, children, where a doctor, not the parents, decides if the kid consent to their own travel to another planet or another world or wherever they, think they're leaving off world. But this whole idea, they've offered it to people with mental illnesses, psychiatric kind, but also by birth, like mental retardation and having Down syndrome, people that are just addicted to drugs. There's now in the news, the woman that just got her heart broken in Spain, and they allowed her to go forward. So if you can't look at me straight in the eye and say there's no program to depopulate. And this fits right into, what we kind of talk about ad nauseum is the food, right?
Yeah. Now, wait a second, Ransom. That back in the article there, you realize that whatever it is, whether it's an adult or a child, there's a very high value on every single part of your body that's not going to be thrown into the rubbish. Every single part of that's going to be sold. So you're being coerced. Like, just for example, this mother here that's throwing away a baby or having whatever. The state has convinced you through loose morals to have the baby, raise it up through maturity, and now it's worth several $1 million cut into pieces, and you did that all for free.
Yeah, of course.
This is what I'm talking about, the debauchery of our society and this whole convincing people, yeah, it's okay, just throw life away, that's great.
Well, think about in the United States, the argument is at which point before birth it's acceptable to do things like this. And I don't want to get too much detail in it, but what they're putting forward is even after the kid's born. And you remember back in early 2000s, Alex Jones and was raving on his broadcast about that they wanted to expand it into the toddler range, and people were saying, oh, you're crazy, conspiracy theorist. Well, not anymore. It's not a conspiracy theory anymore. They're actually trying to talk people in to the whole idea. And there's even we can't really show it on here because
no, but I would say, please, everybody, look at the value of every part of a human body that's for sale after these procedures are taken away.
Right.
Like there's absolute value in every single human being. So if you look and if you go back in and see how much you're worth once you're born, there's a huge amount of different bonds issued against your birth, and banks are owning these and different things. You're never allowed to touch them, but the value of your life is assessed at birth based on your parents and your sociostratic economic genre that you could exist in, and usually most people are moving sideways in it. So wherever you're born, then there's a certain amount of debt, obligations, bonds, and things issued against you at birth. Now, I forget the exact website where you can put your social security number in and see how many. I had like 3,000 and some bonds issued against me. And when I was talking to somebody I said 3,000, they go, oh no, that's nothing. The kids these days got like 12,000. is the value of every interaction that you might buy something in a normal setting in a store, the value of taxes you're going to pay, the amount of energy you're giving into a company. If you're going to work even an hourly wage, a salaried wage, doesn't matter, that you're going to have value to give back to the society. Like, there's pledges against your productivity, your literal life energy. And I was just so shocked that at birth, that's why you're given a birth certificate. That's a contract. And then people issuing debt off of that and different financial instruments off of that debt contract that you have nothing to do with. You don't even know that exists. But then to take it down one step level, even if you're gotten rid of at a very young age, before birth even, there's still value in that, bringing the physical human being into here. And this movie, Jupiter Ascending, you got to check this movie out. I swear to you, this is a documentary on this planet here. Because they talk about harvesting 100 humans to make a vial of this life serum, And I'm looking at that going, wait, that's like farm earth, isn't it here? So there's a value in every single human being that exceeds anything in your wildest calculations of what your worth is. Just your little physical body. And it's insane once you wake up to that fact and you go, I can't believe it. Like, how much a baby's worth? Almost $10 million broken up into pieces.
Think about this. If they made laws where any aborted fetus or person that chose euthanasia or got ordered euthanasia, how they're trying to move it now, where the courts are going to decide who gets to live. And Margaret Sanger and that whole eugenics movement back in the day that just thought, well, poor people shouldn't make children because they can't support them. That idea is coming back around, and it's going to be more popular the less food there is. But think about this. If all of those countries made a law where immediately they got cremated, like immediately afterwards, cremation, then there would be no business, and then they would start outlawing it again because they're not being able to use the resource on their end of it. And you said it. It's not like they're offering a couple $1 million to these expectant parents to do this. They're not getting a cut out of it. They just convinced them that there's a good reason to do it.
Yeah, you're the free incubator that's so naive that you're raising the high value product. You look in a farming setting and humanity is being used as a farmed species. Truly. And it's, once you start to look in that and you got to, all right, well, maybe a lot of these decisions made, the highest makers of the decision world aren't really for humanity. It's for farming our race, or farming our Homo sapien race of humanity as a farmed species, no different than chickens for laying eggs, cattle for their milk, no different. But just an off-planet entity or an interdimensional entity harvests the byproduct of that and is paying higher management for the continuation of that product flow in the supply chain, ethereal or physical, both okay. Oh, you're on mute.
I was going to say, and that's the whole thing, that we are directly tied to the output in a literal sense. Like, people talk about GDP and all that, but it works in reverse too. There's only a certain amount of resources allowed to circulate in the systems. And if they decide to decrease any of those things, which they seem to have been doing when it comes to power generation, when it comes to farming and food production, and even having children, and now they're making it easier than ever to just end, millions of years of struggle and survival on the planet for, certain people, just to end their line for no reason. And then comes the death by not choice, by famine, by war, by poverty. And just looking at I was looking at these food.
Yeah, you were looking at the FAO numbers. I'm absolutely unequivocally saying everybody out listening to this is the real deal. They're now messaging across the media that there's a famine coming.
Yeah.
They never had done this. Is the first time that Ransom and I would, and I've been doing this for more than 10 years. And I kept saying, at the point when they're going to keep it quiet, they're going to silence voices like ourselves from telling everybody what's going on, magnetic field declines, food, this, that controlled the media messaging by very much controlling the social media outlets and the video platforms allowing the message. But now, it would not even surprise me if our channels just really blew up because they want the message of famine to go out there. They want anything to do with food disruption, food disrelated topics to start to get to the top of the leaderboard feed, if you will. That all expression, just sticking through it here, maybe our channels will be pushed because they need the messaging of, hey, there's food instability right at our doorstep, and this is what's taken great civilizations down from the past. That's why I sent you that picture of the city of Ur from 1922 on the aerial photograph there. I'm running on 2 different devices, otherwise I'd swing it over. So I'm pretty much on a commentary, except I did get all my crypto stuff queued up here. But so many civilizations have come and gone, and we are just one in a line of the next to go. There's nothing nefarious about it. It is just the way that our earth provides kind conditions to grow crops reliably, or it doesn't. We were coming into another one of these periods anyway. It was forecast. About 10 to 12 years ago, it was really, the science was down. Things were changing in the sun, things were changing interplanetary. There were different current flows that were seen in plasma coming off the spiral arm of the galaxy. Like, a lot of changes were in our regional star neighborhood here, for a better term. And this is what the Mayans talked about. A lot of more ancient cultures, the Egyptians and the Chinese, they always talked about this ebb and flow of this energy current, like the seed point of humanity being powered or turned down. So it's not new. It's old information, actually. 8,000 years old, this information on these cycles has been around. It's just pointing out that we were coming into another one was really damn inconvenient when they were trying to push the global warming as excuses for all the climate changing you were seeing. They needed a narrative because they didn't want to spook you until now. But now, for some reason, the go time is now to spook the masses. So get ready for it. The spook time is coming. The scary is here. And it's on purpose because they've waited this long before they unleashed the global famine's coming news media messaging. They never got anybody ready. We could have gotten people ready 10 years ago, and you would have just brushed it off and go, oh, no problem. I got supply chains. I got this. We got our whole neighborhoods. We got our regions. Everybody's growing their food. We got our own protein. Not a problem. Let it come on. But now nobody got ready. So now it is going to be a problem, like a major, huge, gigantic civilization resetting problem here on, well, now. Not even on our doorstep. It's here. But the city of Ur, that was 1922 aerial photograph. This place was lush. This was a massive city. This place was surrounded by some of the largest gardens in what you consider Mesopotamia at the time. This was a cradle of civilization for Sumeria. And look at it now. It is a dry desert. So things come and things go. Like, these conditions for us to grow food reliably, it just moved to a different part of the planet. And if it looks like, well, our grain belts are going to turn into something like this in the short term, and all the disruptions from the fertilizer and the economy and the herbicides and the plastics and the food packaging and all that stuff, it's all hitting at the same time now. That's one of the big problems. Like, if these were disassociated and you had like one happening at one time, we could deal with it. And then we come into the economy changing, where you're going to have to get your digital rationing card to get your food, but it can only be on the blockchain. And that blockchain is just the intermediary step to get us to hash graphs. Please understand, everything you're learning now about blockchain, it'll have a 10, 15-year run period, but we're going to move to hash graph in the end. Yeah, so Ransom, everybody's talking about Clarity Act right now, which dovetails. I mean, you can't separate these two. They're reconstructing a new and deconstructing the old monetary system, slamming it together with duct tape and baling wire and bringing us up crypto. And they're going to write off the debt using stable coins. And the entire Clarity Act that's happening now, oh, I oppose it. Oh, it's good. Oh, it's bad. It's just a show. It's going to pass. I nearly fell on the floor this morning when I was listening to Elizabeth Warren, the one who takes the most money from banks in terms of lobbyists, complaining that the American people can actually get a percentage of yield. Like, if you hold $1,000, you might get $40 in interest for the year. You're going to give them 4%. That's more than the banks. They're going to pull their money out. We got to protect the banks. And she even came out and said, there has been so much new, pages added to the act. 33,000 new words were added to the act. And I was like, right there, you messaged it, right? So the whole point of the Clarity Act is to give absolute on paper and pen law of what is a security, as in a stock, a bond, something that needs to be regulated through the FTC or through the SEC. So if you look at our real world right now, if you got stocks, bonds, exchange traded funds, that stuff all slides into what you consider like traditional finance in like the stock market, and that's regulated by the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission. All right. Now, a lot of these tokens are swept up and they're like, they're all securities. You buy them and you sell them. And they're like, no, they're utilization tokens to make payment systems run and trade finance move and this stuff. You can tokenize things on it. It's not a security. It's like a machine that makes it move. And they're like, those machines that make it move are not securities. They are the operable layer that makes it all go. So the infrastructure, like if we're gonna have an oil pipeline system, they're trying to regulate the oil, but they swept up the pipeline of just the metal that carries the oil. So you can't, they're trying to regulate the whole oil market, and then, well, the oil pipes that carry the oil, they were trying to make it all in one big thing. And they're like, no, we need to separate that. The pipes, the metal stuff that carries the oil, that's this digital commodities list. This is the infrastructure that makes it run. The oil itself, which is some of the tokens, those are going to be regulated by the SEC, just like stocks and bonds are. So they've separated it out. This is the big list of 16, but I am super sad not to see XDC network on here, which is the largest trade finance. Like if you're looking at ISO 20022 tokens, XDC network should be on here, but it's not. It is by far the gargantuan leader in trade finance, which means anytime something is bought and sold in a different country, it's going to run on that token system. They've already built it out. I mean, just you should see how many banks are utilizing it already in countries, governments, and things. So it's an infrastructure token in itself. So this is the whole thing to think about with the Clarity Act. They're trying to separate the oil and the water. The thing, and again, Anthony Poplano and a few other people I listened to were saying that most cryptocurrency you understand today is going to be gone and dead in like 5 or 10 years. The only thing that's going to survive are the things that can tokenize an asset and bring it into the real world, like a physical thing, bring it into the real, or the infrastructure that makes it run. And on top of that, you'll have the actual payments. The payments are like Bitcoin, it's a payment. Stellar Lumens, that's another payment one, right? So those are the only things that are going to survive. Because I love the idea of crypto. I love the idea of it being like, I can pay ransom, he can pay me. I love that idea of we can do peer-to-peer transactions. That's the way it should be anyway in finance. I hate paying the money to move money from my bank, and then I got to pay and wait, and then if it's a weekend, I got to wait longer. That's not fair. My money, I should be able to move it the way I want. So I really was always a fan of the idea of being able to move monies by ourselves in instant real time, almost seconds, not days or weeks. And across the planet too, it takes weeks, if not a month. Sometimes your transaction will get locked in a different place, right? For a lot of these people sending remittances home, they should be able to do it for free almost, not spend 25% of their money they want to send home for like Western Union and then wait 3 weeks to get it back to their families. That is unacceptable. It should be less than a penny, and it should go in 2 seconds. They worked hard for their money. They should be able to send nearly 100% of it home. That's for everybody across the planet. If you're going to work your ass off and get paid in a different country, you should be able to keep 99.9999% of that and send it back to where you want it to go. So that's what all this is here. So the 16 bigs, so you like Sweet 16 when you have basketball tournaments and stuff. So these are the last ones that have already been separated off that are under the commodities now. And this is regulated by the CFTC, which also regulates corn and wheat. All right, so these guys are regulating this as a commodity. So this is no different than a basket of wheat, what you're looking at here. The payments are going to be Bitcoin and Stellar Lumens, pretty much. The way you're going to pay for everything, and they call this the plumbing of the new system, is going to be XRP and Ethereum. These are layer 1s, layer 2s. And then you're going to get down into Avalanche, and the tokenization of everything is Avalanche and Chainlink. Now, Litecoin's another payment one as well, which was a fork off of Bitcoin back in the day anyway. So Lightning Network's running that one super fast. Not so familiar with Polkadot. Dogecoin obviously is going to be the Elon Musk payment system. Shiba Inu, again, that's a take on the Dogecoin. Tezos and Bitcoin, another Bitcoin Cash, that's another payment rail. So you can look and see how it's been broken up here. You got the payments, You got the way to make payments move, and then you have the way to tokenize things, like take a real world thing, like an ounce of gold. The way we're going to buy gold in the future is not going to get an ounce. You're going to get like 1/100th of an ounce, but it's going to be like through Pax Gold or some other venue that holds the gold, can chop it up in little pieces and fractionalize it and offer it for you for sale. Now, you to get that physical piece of gold is going to be nigh impossible, but it's called digital gold. You're still going to want to hold some physical assets. But I'm just trying to explain all this because, an HBAR, that's another big one for infrastructure. Like any of these ISO 20022 tokens. So pretty much all of crypto is going to disappear except for these. This is it. Is this Bitcoin thing already happening in Taiwan where you live? In its infancy, the government is really far behind on anything like that. They need to protect people. There's so many crypto scams out in Asia, like so many. Like somebody will meet you, go, oh, I remember you from high school. Oh, my brother remembers you from high school. Oh, yeah, we got this thing. Oh, we're making so much money. You should invest over here. Canton coin, yes, another one of my favorites, CC. The Canton Rails is really definitely institutional money, and the DTCC, which clears all of our government treasuries, is already running on Canton. Canton Network's huge. Now, I was watching Mark Moss, and he was saying that he thinks everything is going to revert back to Ethereum and whatnot. But Canton Coin is its own independent TradFi network built for specifically traditional finance to run through traditional finance, built by it for it. Now you get some Canton coins. They're pretty much going to probably go off the market in a little bit. They're there now to get adoption, but after it takes really institutional finance, they're probably going to disappear. Like XRP, once it really starts to get used, it's going to be harder to find. They're definitely going to go, not a financial advisor, but these things, once they really start to get used, they're going to go up in price. Now, all talk was they're going to remove XRP off the public market. Now, those of you that have it, you'll still be able to retain it, but like a new people come in, once the normies start to get all the messaging, like these are the last 16 here that are going to work. There's probably another bevy of them that aren't listed yet in the Clarity Act. So let's say 32 total. Those are the ones that the government will let be free. The rest of them, the government's going to regulate it, debank you, arrest you. Department of Justice will investigate you, and they're going to get rid of the rest. So once that narrows down to this 32 and 500 trillion comes into the market, like pretty much all of them are going to go up and be used by everybody. So at that point, they're going to start to limit who can buy, what you can buy, and how much you can buy. So at that point, XRP and Canton Coin probably going to slip off the market because that's more for institutions anyway, for big, like when I say institute, I'm talking like the governments of the world and the Bank for International Settlements using that, like way outside our league. Like I was looking staking, because they were talking Canton Coin staking, and you got like $1 million to stake at the base minute. If you're an individual, they won't even talk to you unless you're going to stake $1 million. I'm like, oh, you guys are crazy. So that's a minimum buy-in to stake on some of these platforms on the institutional level is $1 million, and they really they might even reject you because you're just, it's too low. It's not worth the time. They want hundreds of millions. They want entire thing staked on the platform to run and hold the platform. So good ones out there right now that are available for individuals. Again, not financial advice. I'm just looking at the plumbing of the system. Digitization of everything is the way to go. We're going to tokenize the entire planet. They're tokenizing $5 quadrillion worth of stuff. So whatever controls the tokenization process is going to win. So it doesn't move. And it's so interesting that we got the food collapse coming in. We got the resetting economy. You got everything in inflation. You're going to have to get digital rationing cards. And oh my gosh, the Clarity Act passes at this exact same time. You're telling me this is not related at all. Come on. All these things moving in motion in the same vein at the same exact time are not coincidental. We need digital IDs, and suddenly the Clarity Act clears for everybody to tokenize and get you on a digital ID, to get your digital rationing card, to get you the food that's going to be tokenized and digitized and followed every gram of the way through the supply chains. Oh, I think that would VeChain. That would be a good one for that.
You know, but the
supply chain documentation type of thing. I didn't see VeChain on the list, but I'm sure it will be, because that's all about trade documents moving versus sending them in a FedEx envelope. VeChain got that whole thing wrapped up. That's their darling is. Yeah, Zcash. They don't like Zcash. It's too anonymous.
No, that's kind of why I
Monero
brought this
pirate chain.
article up. I was going to ask you what you thought about that because
Love them
everybody's
all.
spazzing out because somebody came out with another private cryptocurrency right when they tried to make it where Bitcoin wasn't private anymore like it used to be, and that's a lot of reason why some people tried to leave it is because they thought they lost their privacy. But in my
Wait, no,
opinion,
Ransom, there's also Monero and Pirate Chain. So these three, the government has a huge problem with, and they really have a problem with that tornado spinner as well.
right? Somebody was asking about where was it?
Yeah, were they asking about diamonds and rubies?
Yeah, there was that also. No, somebody made a comment about Mike Adams' theory that this is all of this information and digital currency is all to eventually, I think they said, build AIs that are like fake citizens out there that and then that way they can control everything. I mean, I'm expanding on the idea a little bit, but I think I heard part of them talking about it. And if you think about this, I brought it up before. You could have a city of 100,000 people or more that aren't people doing things like voting, swaying polls, and that's a real thing already. But not only that, they can sway money because some of the investors, I guess you would say, might not actually be real people. And they can make things like start selling off all of a sudden and make people panic and sell off so they could rebuy it all for a low price. And I'm sure that's already happening because they do it with regular stocks. But yeah, that's an interesting idea. I really think that the data centers are specifically about who's going to control the world, period. It's calculation. It's computational power. And that's what it is. Because, we've talked about all of these different ideas. They want to track everyone. They want to monitor movement all the way down to little animals, how much plants are growing, how much water's staying on the land, how much water you're collecting off of the water that's, coming down on the land. And there's only one outcome for that. That's a completely micromanaged by AI about how every individual lives. So you could just picture an ant colony, a bee colony, and they're trying to set up the lower class of workers that are programmable, not only through media, but directly through different programs of biological and technological merging, which, since I started talking about it, the whole field has exponentially gone so far that it's even hard to understand at this point. There's so many. I've been looking at these different technologies of how they basically want to build us humans and make us wetware for the system.
Yeah, and you're the master at tracking that stuff. You're way ahead of me. I like talking to you and listening to your ideas on that. And the same thing with different technologies and following whatever genre in, it's moving so fast that it's already run away from us on almost every level of everybody I hear talking about, whether it's finance or whether it's ecology or whether it's crop production or anything. The information is moving so fast and so ferociously now that it's hard to keep up. Now, I would say with the data centers, I think it's a false misnomer, and I think we're being hoodwinked into allowing more data centers to be built to run the cryptocurrency edge of it, but it's really just to build out the data centers. It's a bait and switch. Like once this Clarity Act passes, it's going to be required by government that we build out more data centers because we need to run the cryptocurrency networks, and there are going to be many of them. And these finance players are going to demand that they get their own power centers. They're going to demand that they get their own maybe mini nuclear reactors so they can run their own nodes and this sort of thing. We are being bait and switched into it. But like you said, at the end, what is it? It's all about building out more data capacity. Whether they sell it as we need to run more blockchains and have more things digitized, tokenized, whatever, run Rails on this. We need way more computing power because the expansiveness of I'm just saying some estimates. I'm looking at by 2035, where we sit in the cryptocurrency space now, they're going to need a minimum of 5,000 times more computational power than exists today. And that's not even going to get us even a fraction of the way we really need to go to digitize, tokenize everything on the planet. So look at anything anything that is out there for sale, if they're talking these numbers, I mean, the usage of it, once institutions grab onto it and it becomes the way to buy, sell, trade, use, or swap or own something. Once this happens, you're corralled into the system anyway. But the amount of power that's going to be required for this is just going to be insane. And then, I wrote a note when you were talking here. It comes down to watts, calories, and BTUs. And that is it. Those are the three things on the planet that are going to have the most value: watts, calories, and BTUs. And before it was pretty much BTUs and calories, but now you got this whole other subset here coming in. And mark my words, anybody listening, you're going to be required to get a digital rationing card to be able to get food, maybe not in the next 6 months, but in the future. And one way they're going to pull you into the digital ID is to make you hungry. Hungry people do anything, man. I'll walk over fire and with bare feet on coals to go get a damn can of tuna if I'm hungry enough,
Yeah, here's a comment here. They already cannot keep track of Medicaid funds fraud. What makes them think they could track field mice? Because they want to.
Yeah,
they're stealing the money from the
time.
Medicaid. They don't want to keep track of it because it's being funneled, just like you quoted, you put in parentheses there, fraud. Of course, they are keeping track of it. Believe me, they're keeping track of every red cent to their programs that they're siphoning off the money for, or their own little private funds, or insider trading things. And then somebody says, "Yeah, we already have more data centers than even China here." That's because the people here openly, and it's not just my theory, that is the future. They're talking about we must control computational power of the earth. Any war that's fought, any whether it's economic or real world, kinetic or even nuclear, is all going to be decided from computation from the country's AIs running against each other.
Yeah, and I want to thank Pamela Pollack and Silver Creek and someone for supporting us over on buymeacoffee.com/civilization cycle. If you got some comments, please throw them over there. I'd be happy to expand out on a few different ideas with that. But it is all about the computation right now. And this Clarity Act is going to shift the money of our world. Like I was trying to explain, that the money of the United States is now in the process of shifting to a new money. To understand the Stablecoin Act and the whole Clarity Act, it's about, we have too much debt. Nobody wants to buy our debt any longer. But out of the very bad choices on the world, we have the best bad choice of bad fiat currency is called the dollar. It's still the strongest one-ish. If you're, like Swiss franc, the backed by gold, literally, you can walk in and change it over the counter. But beyond that, there's very few currencies. So to get demand for our US dollar, they're going to allow people to save like a $1 US dollar tether or USD circle somewhere in like Brazil or India or Guyana or whatever, Nepal. And you can store it on your phone as a dollar, not in your crappy local currency. Excuse me, everybody has crappy local currencies. We have a crappy local currency called the dollar we're still forced to use too. So I'm not pointing fingers at anybody. I'm just saying fiat's junk. It's all in the collapse phase. But the best bad choice we have right now is the dollar. The tokenized, when they issue one, say USDT or one USDC, they need to buy that much in bonds before legally, in the new law, says they can issue a new dollar. They have to have treasuries behind it to issue a new dollar out on their system, which somebody in India or somebody in Argentina or somebody in Botswana wants to hold a dollar because it's going to hold more value than their local currencies. And you can hold it on your phone, digital, crypto. This is going to drive a huge amount of people to start wanting to get dollars. And the more dollars they want out there, the more treasury bonds can get bought. Because currently, right now, no governments want them. So they're putting the whole movement of all of our money moving forward from this month onto the people of the planet to create the demand for our money so we can print more of it. Governments have had enough. They're like, hell no, I don't want any more of that stuff. We can't even sell it. They can lock it off. I don't want any more treasury bond. Hell no. But now somebody who's poor in the middle of Africa or wherever you are on the planet, you're going to store a dollar. That is going to save your life. So people are going to flock to run to that thing. And another thing, like to digitize gold, Pax Gold, people are jumping in there too. I got an extra $50. I think gold's going up. I'm just going to put it in the gold fund. So all this money is moving out of traditional banks. And this is why the bought and paid for Elizabeth Warren, who should be investigated for fraud outside the 18th. You guys need to take her to the Himalaya with a bat stick and back on fraud. Because this woman gets more money from the banking industry than any other politician aside from Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. She's the one trying to derail the entire Regulation Act, going, oh, there won't be any like oversight or anything. People are going to get, the whole point of having the Clarity Act is to bring oversight in it and operate it just like you would on the stock market or traditional banks. So you're just being bought and paid for by the banks. So you don't want Americans to get 4% yield on stable coins or 4.5 or 5.0%, whatever, because your banking partners that are paying you and have bought your soul are telling you to push back against this and just, step on the American people so the banks can retain control of our energy and milk us of our generational wealth, which is ridiculous. You need to be removed. You're a scumbag, bought and paid for politician that is so overbribed that I can't believe you don't have any ethics violations against yourself already that need to be investigated, telling us that you can't pass the Crypto Act because the banks are going to lose money and you're worried about ethics violations of people. Come on, you need to look at home first. And I really believe a lot of these, those that are opposing the Clarity Act need to be investigated to see which banks are giving them on their lobby side that are pushing against this. But it is all political theater. It's all theater anyway. So, I mean, really, at the end of the day, it's just, if it was so great and the systems work, they wouldn't need to put so much time and energy to convince you that the system works. It's theater. But when they said 33,000 new words have been added to the Clarity Act, they already gave it away that it was a total system. But anyway, the way that these politicians take the money from lobbyists needs to stop. And will cryptocurrency stop some of their bribing? Probably not. They're just going to go to Zcash or Monero and they'll throw it through Tornado Cash and just hide their dirtiness. I mean, a USDT run through, that's a centralized network. They can lock it off, but there's a huge amount of other ways to get paid and then run it through Tornado Cash and clean it. Enough said. But anyway, thank you for joining us for this first hour. I definitely got some stuff on the RWAs coming back. So, the biggest things in our lives are money. And how are you going to survive this and thrive during the time? The change is here. I mean, the hyperinflation is coming. There's no way they're not broadcasting it. We're moving to an entirely new monetary system. So it's good to know where the new money is going to come from and how it's going to work. In addition to what you can get, I got a bunch of slides on the wheat I wanted to share. So the food's going up, incredible. They're going to get you hungry and moved into a new system digitally. The new system is going to have some huge potential in it, but they're going to try to focus you down on stable coins where there's no yield. So you're, again, just a slave sitting there working for hourly with no yield, and you're going to have to spend every hour. You're not going to sleep and make money. So we're going to take a look at the digitization and the infrastructure and the tokenization aspects of it, because that's where the real money is going to be moving to. Don't sit your money in stable coins. Not financial advice, but you're going to earn no yield. Like, why would you put something that gives you zero yield when you could go into something else that's paying you 4 or 5% just for staking on the network? Like, you're getting paid in the tokens, and as those go up in price, you're getting paid in the thing that's going up in price. Not even dollars. You're getting paid in the thing that's going up in the price that's being used in the network. So anyway, come back second hour, the Civilization Cycle podcast. Please support us on buymeacoffee.com/Civilization Cycle, and also the Civilization Cycle podcast website, civilizationcycle.com. Drop your email in there, and I will get you the show notes of the bullet points and things and ideas we talked about tonight. Been hogging the mic from Ransom. When we come back, I'll let him get on. But anyway, come on back for the second hour. We'll see you right then. Hey everyone, are you ready to grow your own fresh, delicious vegetables, herbs, and flowers this season? If you're looking for the highest quality heirloom and organic seeds, I've got the perfect company for you, True Leaf Market. They've been a trusted seed company since 1974, offering 3,000 types of non-GMO varieties, everything from classic heirloom tomatoes and peppers to rare herbs, microgreens, sprouting seeds, and beautiful flowers. All those seeds are open pollinated, pure, and perfect for home gardeners or anyone wanting healthy, flavorful produce without chemicals. What I love the most is their huge selection, fast shipping guarantees, plus options for bulk if you're going big. If you're excited to start your garden this year with real, authentic, heirloom and organic seeds, click the link in the description box below to check out trueleafmarket.com. You won't regret it. Happy planting, and thank you for supporting the channel and this broadcast. Product you love, the 72-hour emergency food kit from My Patriot Supply. Not only emergency food, but camping food, and you can prepare that through the week as well. 20 delicious just add water meals. Think about creamy mac and cheese, hearty chili, sweet oatmeal. 2,000 calories a day. You need the calories. You're going to need to think and move. And the mashed potatoes, easier to make than oats, and you can add your own flavors. Goes with anything. For less than a couple of takeout meals at a fast food restaurant, get real peace of mind. And a real question to ask, how long could your family eat without leaving home? My Patriot Supply, click on that link in the description box below. It helps the channel. Truth is hard to say and hard to hear. Most people choose silence. We choose to speak. Your support of our sponsor keeps the Civilization Cycle podcast on air and giving us the courage to keep digging. That link's in the description box below. This is not a toothpaste. It's a revolution for your teeth. Remineralize, strengthen teeth, all natural ingredients, essential oils, minerals, salts, Alpha Vedic Dental Solutions System. That's alphavedic.com/civilization. You know, we're always trying to bring you the best products here that we think will enhance your life, especially if supply chains break down further, or if there's some disruption in our lives here. It seems in the news more and more possible, but hey, who knows? Maybe it's a mind game. But what is not is keeping your dental health up. And not a lot of people are talking about this. We always see the storable foods. But what about dental care during these same emergency situations? Will your toothpaste eventually run out? Well, if it does, then what? So like I say, this whole micro gut biome is driven by your oral cavity first. So take a look at what they have, alphavedic.com/civilization. Every purchase you make helps keep our live radio show and podcast on air, bringing you more information just like this. alphavedic.com/civilization. That link is in the show notes below. And as always, I appreciate your valuable time and joining us in this ever and most important conversation as we move forward in our world.
Please remember to sign up for our show notes. With Civilization Cycle podcast, you can learn what to expect as society resets. Agriculture, economy, tech, and history all have mappable cycles, and these cycles affect every aspect of our lives. We can navigate the chaos and thrive together with up-to-date news and information. Also, if you like the content we have here on Civilization Cycle, think about fueling the discussions and the show by buying us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Civilization Cycle. And thank you for all the support.
Welcome back for the second hour right here on the Civilization Cycle podcast. Every Thursday night, 10 p.m. to midnight, getting situated back in the chair for the second hour. Where's the money moving to and what's happening with our food? These are the big, I live in a 3-floored house. Ran downstairs, so I need to come back up. So I wanted to bring you to something that's available to everybody for free. This is the CoinGecko Real World Asset 2026 report. So let me bring it up for you here. Now remember, this is available for anybody to look at for free. Real world assets. This is the thing that people and companies are using to tokenize assets right now. And when I say that, it is about taking a real world thing and turning it into something that can be traded outside of the actual location of the physical thing. So most time, if you own a house, you have to physically be there to buy it and sell it or own it. Well, what if I could break your house up into 10,000 different pieces and have the value totally of your house, but then be able to offer that to other people, and there would, be shared ownership of said house. That's the whole thing about digitizing different assets here. So I want to take a look at how we can, I want to bring myself back on the screen here. Whoops. So what's this report all about? First thing, I'm going to focus back in here instead of playing with the camera. Tokenized real world assets, they reached 13 billion by the end of Q1 2026. But you got to realize that tripled since 2025. So when I'm talking about the usage cases here, it tripled more in 1 quarter, which is just 3 months, than it did in all of 2025. It's going to continue at this rate, and this is just like the beginning of it. So you could imagine it going 30 times once the Clarity Act is finished, or 300 times higher than it is right now in a single year. So another, idea for you is how much money is moving into the space. And right now the laws aren't passed, so nobody with real money can move into it. Like any of the insurance companies can't touch it. Any of the banks can't get into it really unless they're tokenizing their own individual assets, like their own gold holdings or something. Institutional players that are coming in, they're not going to be able to really get in there unless there's laws on the books that allow them protections, and then they can bring your 401k into this thing, into this ecosystem here. Now, there are gold-backed tokens right now. There's Pax Gold, which I'm more familiar with than XAUT, which is a US dollar tether gold product. So nearly 4 times as much money came in and was tokenized as a commodity as well. So 4x increase in the amount of money coming in to tokenize just gold. And then also 3 times more usage of platforms just in the first 3 months than all of last year. So the tokenized gold, 90 billion in Q1 2026. And again, this is surpassed the entire 84 billion for all of the whole year of 2025. So there's more gold traded digitally in the first 3 months of the year in just Q1 of 2026 than all of 2025. This is the scale that it's running at. This is the scale where we're getting up incredibly fast and huge in usage of it. So tokenized stocks, that's a brand new thing. Robinhood and a few of these others, I'm not into the tokenized stocks, but those of you who might be that understand the stock market better than I do to play that, they're just offering you fractions of a stock, or you can buy it digitally. You don't have to be actually on the markets anymore and use your broker and spend all the fees, and you can't trade on on Saturdays and Sundays, but you can with tokenized stocks. A spot trading, again, you have to look at the Q1, just in the first 3 months, 15 billion, but all of the last half of, it's doubling. The last half of 2025 was 14. So, that's eclipsed that in the first 3 months. Now the ETFs here, this is where a lot of the money is going to flow, in my opinion. Tokenizing gold, one thing, but once you get into the ETFs, like wheat ETFs, corn ETFs, once you start being able to digitize these commodities and tokenize them, this is where the big money is. And everything that's big money, they're tokenizing oil as well. So let me see if I can shrink this a little bit so we can get everything full screen for you. So these are called real world assets. Remember what I was talking about, all these 16 companies, or the 16 tokens, they are companies that are allowed to operate now by law through the new Clarity Act. This is what they're bringing into the market and what they're going to allow. It's just the infrastructure to let it go. It's not about the company providing the thing they're tokenizing. It's just they have the technology to allow this to happen. They have the platforms already that makes this possible. And the usage of it to bring in, so far we're only talking tens of billions of dollars. They're talking not trillions of dollars, but quadrillions, which is tens of thousands of times more money than's in here now. So you got to think about 1,000 millions is a billion. So right now we're like, let's say 20 billion. Well, they want to bring in 100 trillion. So 1,000 billions is a trillion. And then when we get into quadrillion, that's another 1,000 trillions. So we're up into the tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of times larger market than it is now. So imagine the price if something was going to be 100,000 times larger than it is. Even if it was a penny, yeah. You can see where this is moving to. So the tokenized commodities market cap, and this is like how much these companies are worth more and more as they provide more product. There's more goods held on their networks, which gives them more validation that they're real. More people come back in and go, I want to use that one because look, they got 30 billion locked in gold. There's been no defaults. I think that's a solid one. Hey, company boss, CEO, we're going to use this one. Okay. I don't know many other ones. You sound like you know what you're talking about. And tokenized trade volume here, and it's going to continue to go up. So, I mean, once this really scales, you're going to have to take this chart, and what that huge bar is, that'll be like the little one down at zero here in another year or so as this thing ramps up. So it's just going to continue up. The tokenized stocks, again, I'm not so familiar with this, more of a Robinhood trading thing. But if you can see down here, so far, these are the stocks that have been tokenized that are trading 24/7. Coinbase, MicroStrategy, Alphabet, NVIDIA, and Amazon, Microsoft, Meta, Micron, others. All right, so this is already the bigs already that are comprise most of our stock market anyway that are being here and being able to get out onto the markets, and people trade fractions of it. See, that's the whole thing. You don't have to buy. So if you wanted to buy Apple or something or in NVIDIA, you're talking hundreds and hundreds of dollars. I don't know the exact price of each one, but hundreds of dollars for each individual stock. Like in the old days, you couldn't buy a portion of a stock. Well, now you can. You can buy like 1/100th of a share, 1/50th of a share. So here's the big one. This is my call on this. ETF money flows. This is where the big money is. This is where the real players sit. This is where the actual commodities that have big trillion-dollar money comes in right through here. They have every possible thing that has a physical thing that you can trade in a market. Again, I just come back to corn, soybeans, wheat, canola oil, cocoa, lumber, cotton. Any of this stuff on the ag side is getting traded through here. And you can see already who's popping in on it. Now, Ondo's not one that you can really earn much. It's very difficult. Ondo is definitely an institutional level player. But notice how many of them are already using Ondo. The only way, in my opinion, to play this one is just to own it outright and it goes up. Because I looked, where can you stake it? Where can you restake it? Where can you liquid stake it? Liquid restake. Difficult with Ondo. It's way easier with Chainlink and way easier with Avax or Avalanche. So not that I'm suggesting anything, I'm just saying, look at the big money that's using Ondo as its platform to be able to tokenize everything. That's nearly the entire US stock market on the NASDAQ. So think about how much money that actually is. So take the real amount of all the money that's in the NASDAQ, just the NASDAQ. We're not going to talk like the S&P 500 or anything, or the Russell 1000. Just go straight into the S&P 5, or let's say with NASDAQ only, because S&P 500 is in there. I didn't see iShares Core was on that. How much money in the real world is just in that market? Well, that all is coming out into tokenized markets. That's what's so scary for all the banks, because they're not going to control it anymore. It's going to be through these platforms, which will be controlled by the banks. But it won't be the way that money was controlled by banks like we're used to in the last 50 or 70 years. It's shifting. These platforms are going to control how the flows go. That's why Elizabeth Warren's being paid so heavily by all these banking lobbies to try to throw a wrench into this to get more leverage on it than just losing total control. So the perpetuals just means it's trading 24/7, 7 days a week. That's what perpetual means. It never stops. Like normally, the stock market closes in 3 p.m. or opens at 8:30, whenever time zone. But there's definitely an opening and a closing bell. This thing running 24/7. And that's what, let me see what else we got here. Oh, and there's the XTC market. Like XTC, I've been looking into. It is not really featured so highly in a lot of these things. So anyway, this report here is on CoinGecko. You can get that for free. It is their real world asset update. And the reason I would be looking at this so heavily is because this is where everything's running. All of the world's money and all the world's stock market and all of the world's commodities are going into real world assets. So let me, CoinGecko, they should have a portfolio. Here it is. The live RWA report at the top there. So if you go to CoinGecko, if I could speak.com, and toss it in there. You will see the RWA for free. NFTs, these are pretty much a thing of the dodo bird past. They're not going to really be allowed to operate any longer, except things like the XTC network that you have to put the money into an NFT to lock it for a year. And that's the only way. These ape NFTs and all this stuff, they're meant to go away. The only way NFTs that you're going to understand, or your kids will understand them, is once you stake something on a network, you can then take that staked coin token that you have and then lock it for a year inside the network using an NFT to lock on the network. There ain't going to be no apes for sale in the NFT world in the future. Just saying. And perpetuals as well, things like Binance coin. Binance got another perpetual coming out, which will be the new BNB coin. They had to split it off. So there's a new one coming out there. And that's all I got. I'm going to stop rambling here. But anyway, you can see the movement of money. This is where the money's going. If you already know where it's heading to, maybe you could position yourself to be there and catch some of it instead of getting dragged along, not understanding any of this, and just get caught up in the current and flung down the river. If you have a chance to have a canoe and like paddle a little bit of direction and control more of it. And they're talking really quadrillions. $4 quadrillion was the final estimate to push into this system. We're just simply at a couple trillion total, and Bitcoin's like half of that, or 40%. I have to look and see the percentage on the Bitcoin dominance chart. But if you're thinking it's only a trillion, and I'll say 2 trillion, make it easy. A quadrillion is 500 times more than that. And they're talking about 4 quadrillion at the minimum base to bring in. And then if they do derivatives, they're talking about hundreds of quadrillions. It needs to flow somewhere through these rails here. Trade finance is one thing with XDC network. It's got to go through somewhere. So even at like a 2 trillion market cap rising to a quadrillion is a 500x. They're going to do a 4 quadrillion drop into the market. That's a 2000x from where it sits today at the present levels. I mean, do you think there's any opportunity in that? If you know where it is, and some of these platforms are going to be used way more heavily. And getting paid in interest on these platforms compared to getting paid in US dollar tokens as your interest is the way you want to go. Just in my opinion, like if you're looking to stake some, let's say Avalanche, you're getting paid in Avalanche tokens. So if you believe that Avalanche is going to be used as a RWA highway to get things into the tokenization world, that platform would go up in value because more people are using it. Or Chainlink, that is the baby of the institutions, Chainlink. So low-hanging fruit there. That's been the beginning since the beginning. If you believe that Chainlink will be used more, and it absolutely will, every bank's talking about using it. Central banks are talking about using it. Every company's talking about using it. Corporations, ETFs, stock markets already publicly said, we're going to use this one. If you think that's going to go up in value and you want to get paid in that token, that's going to continue to increase in value as your interest earned on the token that you lock in their platform. This is the new world. You're going to have to stop thinking about dollars. Dollars don't exist anymore. They really don't. The dollar, the thing you knew of the dollar is no longer in existence, at least the way the new financial system is structured. It's not going to use the dollar you understand. It's already moved into a new system. We're in the blending phases of like my hand disappearing on the background into the new system. There we go. Dollars, new system. Dollars, new system. We're at that point right this second. Like if you really can comprehend that for a second, there's no more dollar. Never think of using dollars again. You're going to have to think about interacting in these types of the value of these systems that are going to provide the value in the real world that then will be converted to something spendable. It might even change names. I don't know. Anyway, I'm done rambling. I saw you step away there, so I thought I'd take over the mic. Anyway, man, welcome back. Oh, you're on mute.
A lot of people are thinking that they're not going to participate in that system. But think about when you pay your utilities, almost anywhere, at least in the United States, they have one of those payment companies that's third party. So you have no choice but to opt into their little program to pay the utility, unless you're going to drive there and hand them a check or debit like on the spot at the utility company. Now, some people still do that. They're old fashioned. They go drive around and they try to pay it. But some of them, like where I live, you're locked out. You can't even get into the power company. I mean, it's like a fortress there. You can't get in there. You have to pay it online or set up one of those direct deposit auto payments things. So whenever they switch over to these other systems like the digital things, they're going to tell you that you have to open an account in order to do business with them, and that's what they always do, is force you to, if you want to use their service, that you have to enroll in whatever program they're using, which will be these, stable coins and different things that they're doing business with. I mean, that's quite obvious, and they have to do this because when you saw the removal of the penny, you
Yeah, they
knew that
started.
they were going to start getting rid of all of it, and we already knew before that. They've had so many excuses. It supplies the black market with the monetary system, and all that's silly because all they'll be doing is trading in different things like crypto, or even paying each other in silver and gold straight up, like what's that? What was that movie with the Keanu Reeves there, where they had the whole underground system and everybody was using the silver and gold coins as their banking? Uh, I always
He was
forget
an
the name.
assassin, right? John
Yes.
Wick.
Yeah, John Wick. You saw how they did all their transactions was under the board and with gold and silver, all of it. And that's the only way a black market will survive. And that's not the only excuse they give to get rid of the money. They want to track it, for one, because they've had trouble. They're tired of the counterfeiting, which, I think those skills and services seem to come out of the government to be able to copyright, or not copyright. I mean, just copy counterfeit things of that degree of complication. So it's kind of like the drug industry. All these drugs pop up, and then you trace it back to some program in the government that was the first distributors of that drug, and they taught people how to cook it or make it or whatever, and then they spread. They're doing the same thing with all of this other stuff. It's the same program in each field. They destroy the old system, they set up a new system, they make you opt into it, and you have no choice. And I know a lot of people think that they're just going to say no and opt out. But that's not really going to be possible if you have to pay your utilities and income tax and your property tax and all of these other things with these systems. You have to opt in, or people with guns show up.
There won't even be that. You just won't be able to eat. You just literally won't be able to operate in the system. It's not really the mark of the beast, buy, sell, trade, where they insert something under your wrist or whatever.
I mean, and think about, you're right. You would just get kind of ostracized out to the outside of civilization. But look at what even those people are opted into the digital programs. I mean, because they're using the little digital soup kitchen to eat and to get their paraphernalia from whatever left government is helping them do their addictions. And it seems like those governments are just a little bit behind Canada. So soon those people will be offered a alternative way off world, because they're already trying to opt out and leave the world. I mean, they're standing there like zombies on the corner. And this is something that is a little bit irritating. When we had this whole supposed golden age start here, that's one thing that they didn't, they're not addressing or talking about. They're talking about, starting wars or military operations and far off lands to stop the flow of that stuff, but they're not like cleaning it up off the street. There's still, San Fran shithole and places just like that. And it's still going on. And you know what? And I thought, because there was a lot of people talking about, we're a little too gloomy. So I did have this one article to switch it back to the more positive, so that when you're looking at these articles and you're seeing all the motivation of what's going on there out in the world and all of these changes, you can just, just be optimistic. And literally, studies say you will live longer despite your bad habits. I'm not telling you to go drink and smoke and be merry. I saw that in the comments too, but I'm not telling you to do that. However, what they're saying in this article is that research shows that most of that stuff, isn't a big a factor as they thought it was. Eating healthy, exercise, not smoking, managing your cholesterol, your blood pressure, and stress. But it turns out just being an overall optimistic person about your situation and, coming events literally allows people to live a little bit longer and prevent premature death, I guess you could say.
Well, I want to go to a comment here on buymeacoffee.com/civilization cycle. Comes from Silver Creek. Speaking of smoking, order tobacco seeds. Is tobacco difficult to grow? No, it's incredibly easy, actually. First year, you can grow that and you'd be surprised. Just need to, watch a few videos on it, get the seeds started off before you need to germinate them in the soil. I guess you could just germinate them in the soil, just throw a bunch of seeds out. It probably wouldn't. It's easier to put it in a row, though, because the stuff's all sticky. Right. And just learn how to harvest it and dry it and cure it. It is a learning process, but I learned so much the first year after doing it. I was surprised how easy it grew and how tall it grew.
Right.
How easy it was to save the seeds too, putting a paper bag over the whole seed head and like wrapping it with a rubber band. And then after it started to dry out, clip it off and just let all the seeds fall in the bag. Those seeds are so tiny. Ceremonial tobaccos is where you're going to want to go also.
That's probably money in Cuba.
There's a huge amount of tobacco information. It's so easy to grow. And it's been, how many, like think about that, Ransom, like as a tradable, besides the weed and the alcohol and stuff, silver, gold, think about like tobacco. How tradable would tobacco be if you're able to grow your own tobacco?
It'd be absolutely tradable. I mean, there's millions of nicotine addicts out there. But besides that, not even on the addiction point, we already seen a whole revolution in society driven by the tobacco trade since it was discovered and brought back to Europe. Everybody wanted it. Everybody started doing it. They even as far up into the American Revolution, if you had any kind of cancer or indigestion or, gut problems, you could go down to the doctor. They'd bend you over and blow tobacco smoke right up your butt.
Back in the days when that was using all kind of weird cures and stuff, Ransom.
That's where that saying comes from. You're not blowing smoke up my ass, right? It comes from that, literally.
No way. That colloquialism, nice.
Yeah, it literally came from an actual believed treatment that if, you ingested the tobacco smoke from the other end, it would solve all kinds of problems. I'm glad they figured that out and just made it into a nice, relaxing, tradable good. But think about when Cuba, I was going to get into that in a minute, when Cuba comes back online in a few years, because right now it's basically in the Stone Age. Odds are the United States is going to either annex it or we're going to invade it for humanitarian reasons because of what's going on there, even though that we're partially to blame for what's going on there, but not totally. The 90% of what's to blame there is because of the transition into communism. Right. So right here, look, what I was going to say with the tied to the tobacco thing, that's going to be something that they're going to have right off the bat. Everybody wants Cuban tobacco. But as far as, keeping your optimism going, try not to be not optimistic about these headlines I'm going to go through to show you that there is one direction that we're going down this summer, this year, whatever you want to call it, this new decade that's coming. A third of a century basically is like one of those points like 25 years. And if you notice every 25-year mark on the century, some major change happens, and 2025 was no different. And we are easing right into the Great Reset that we talked about for the last 5 years. We're well into it. It's pretty obvious. U.S. inflation is going to keep climbing higher. So just, keep that in the back of your head there for various different reasons. Well,
can I preface something when you go through these articles here? Now, The reason we try to bring you the information is because I'm incredibly hopeful. This is the best time to be alive. There's more opportunity to solve problems right now than ever in human history. And if you can't really understand that, then you don't get the crux of what the news media is feeding you. The opportunity is in solving the problems of so many that they're going to be. And if you're able to position yourself financially, understanding the change that you're coming into, you will retire early. Not financial advice, but it's just like if you get in the right place at the right time before and be where the puck will be, as Gretzky says. We're trying to let you know where the puck's going to be. I'm the most optimistic I have ever been in my entire life as we sit here today. Really, no BS assessment. There's so many changes coming that you can see broadcast so clearly that if you can't get in front of it, you're blind. I bet a blind person with a stick can get in front of a lot of these. So don't come
Right.
out like, well, you're doom and gloom show. No, this is a crystal ball show.
Well,
Crystal
not just that.
opportunity show. So
Right.
Ransom, continue, please.
Well, it's not just that. We're just looking at, trends that are happening, whether you like it or not. They're just happening. I mean, it's reality. You do have to accept reality. Even to be optimistic, you have to understand your environment. Otherwise, there's nothing to plot out or plan to be optimistic about. So, I like to realize where I'm at in time. And believe it or not, I think that there is a way forward that's going to happen that might possibly not include a world war. Because I don't think that, anyone actually wants nuclear annihilation. Who wants to rule over the ashes of the world? I'm sure there's some really crazy, uh, you know, insane people out there in power. But there's also a majority of people that want to rule. And those people don't want to rule over ashes. They want to rule over empire. So I think there may be a way forward that's plotted out that we might not talk about that much, and that there might be just a big deal going to happen, a big trade deal, a big agreement. And, you can tie the whole UFO disclosure thing, and you can tie the way that the economy is going right now and all of that into it, future depopulation. And I think that is that the West and the Far East are about to make a deal to co-govern the planet. That'll be, and then it'll build up a whole nother eras of Cold War and competition amongst technologies and things like that. But this is part of that. I don't know how you say that, HIMARS, to be deployed in the islands. Kind of the more that this happens, the more likelihood that there's never going to be a war, because it starts to be too costly. It starts to be just for no reason. I mean, it would be just destruction for no reason at that point. But anyway, precision strikes, the most significant their missile defense system, a highly mobile artillery rocket system, and they're going to deploy that all over. And this is right where you're at right now. This is out of the Taipei Times. They're wanting to put these everywhere to basically tell China, you don't want to come in here. It'd just be too costly. It'd just be a big mess, and you're not going to gain anything in the future from it. But not just that.
Now, Ransom, being here, I kept trying to have a conversation with people like, you're walking down the same path as America, where you're just going to continually buy weapons, and the services of the Taiwanese people, including some of the best medical care on the planet for some of the kids, it's incredibly cheap to live here, and the quality of life is so high because they haven't been spending money on weapons. There's all this extra money from the government to go to the people for infrastructure, for healthcare, all this stuff, education, very incredible high. And now they're starting to spend billions, 20 billion this last purchase on all this garbage. And I was saying, you start walking down this road, spending 20 billion this month, it's going to be like 10 billion next month. There's like 7 billion the next month so they got like 100 billion already this year earmarked for the weapons. I'm like, that's
Right.
100 billion that could have gone for healthcare, education, different, green energy initiatives, like cleaning the beaches, having all these cleanup, clean island too, because they got so many people out here cleaning the thing up because they're all getting paid to do it. Now, what happens when that money goes away? That was my whole issue, is they're walking down, in my opinion. I understand I need to protect yourself and show some, defensive capabilities, but to spend all this money on weapons that are going to be outdated in 2 years, and you need to buy them all again and just stockpile them somewhere, you're on the treadmill to nowhere.
Right. Well, and really it gives the world only two options. They sit there and use all this stuff while people slowly die and starve and are poor and things are bad, and let them pay attention to all the flashy things blowing up in the sky, or as the people in the Middle East know, it's real down on the ground when they hit. But I just don't see why they would. Total annihilation is the only thing that any of this leads to. But they have done many, many, many decades of proxy wars between superpowers. So they could just go ahead and do that. I mean, I'm not saying it's out of the question, but I kind of think with what's going on in China right now that we may come to an agreement, or things might just go flying off the rails rapidly. But we do live in the future. We've been talking about those crop protecting robot dogs, and now over here in Japan,
The robot wolves. There's
They
been a huge amount of bear attacks. Didn't you have the slide that said there was like 100 and some bear attacks here in the last
Yeah,
year?
they're running out of habitat. And they're hungry. They want to eat. And because there's lacking in smaller animals and habitat, well, they're going to come into the cities. It's just like where I live. When there is a bad drought, prolonged drought, or stuff like that, and the animal population goes down, the bears will start coming down from the mountains and digging through our trash and trying to get food wherever they can. It becomes a real nuisance when you got a big brown bear, a big black bear downtown, just digging through your cars. People on the east in Tennessee, you guys are kind of used to that, but those are not starving bears that come by. Most of the time, there's a lot of food out in the nature, but whenever they start coming down in the desert, out of the mountains, out of the forest area, they are starving, and it's bad news for interactions. But I just thought it was funny. They got the super robot wolf dog, to protect them, to scare off the bears. But let me tell you, if the bears get hungry enough, this ain't going to scare off the bear. The bear's just going to break this thing.
A good try, but I will say bears come down to the rubbish. So they know it's a food source. Like for me, bears are just like big rats. People go, "Oh, black bear." I just go, big black rat is what they are. They come into the rubbish, they break everything up, they rip open all the bags, they only eat like lick and nibble around some stuff. It's a huge mess, right?
Right. Well, they're essentially giant raccoons, and you know how raccoons act. So it's the same family of animal and everything. So they really behave real similar. And just like humans, they're omnivores. So they like all the snacks that we like. They'll be in your refrigerator if you let them. But more optimism. The tech job market is a bloodbath. That's what they're calling it. I kind of told you that they were going to do that last week when I saw that down further in the article. Now it's officially being called a bloodbath. And they're expecting for the rest of this year more and more layoffs. So AI robots, they're taking your jobs, just like on South Park. They're taking our jobs. And you know what? It's not going to be good because, the AI is not performing well. And actually, it's making our entire reality from one end to the other very hard to distinguish what's real and what's not. And it's a giant confusion. It's like a mega mockingbird machine. You thought Mockingbird was bad when the CIA and the Pentagon were telling your news anchors what to report on and how to report it and all of that. Well, now we're in the future where some programmers that work for somebody somewhere are writing the news, writing the speeches, writing the movies. So we were just talking about how degrading and inhumane the media visually has become to, kind of the morale and the morality of civilization. With all of the death, every show's about death. It's all, you can even flip through antenna TV and all you're going to see is murder, 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 crime, crime, murder, murder, crime. Right. And then you go to the news and then there's the real version of all of those same things. Or you could, separate in a cop show. But check this out. A Florida news site shuts down after getting busted for fake AI reporters, stolen content, even fake editor-in-chief. So really, it's not even, think about how fast you could pop up a propaganda operation these days from central casting. You just employ a bunch of nobody. There's nobody there. It's all fake. The editor-in-chief, the writers, the everything. Who's getting paid? Where's the money coming from? Who knows? Round and round it goes.
Why didn't I think of that? Damn, that's a good money-making opportunity. You could pop one of those up, get all the ad rev coming off of that. I can't believe I didn't think of that, using a whole AI site.
You imagine if we could just steal our own shows and then play them to us like in the early or late 90s, early 2000s. We'd know all the crap to invest in. We'd know all of the bad things that were about to happen. We would seem like Nostradamus on steroids if we started talking to people. We'd probably end up in an insane asylum before any of the events happened because people would think we were so crazy on the things we were saying.
We'd be running our own investment funds with trillions under management.
Right. And this is literally the core of what we've been talking about, the singularity when civilization transfers over into this new form, whatever it is. We do know it's going to be digitally ran, though. Humanity faces an uncertain fate as experts, if I could talk, brace for super intelligent AI. And we already have what would be equivalent compared to us as super intelligent AI. So what they're talking about, I didn't even get into it, but that really is the argument, the computational power of the world. At which point does we just turn into the one world order, because it seems like everywhere and anywhere they're getting ready for a massive robotic warfare campaign that's probably going to be worldwide. And I've been covering this for a while, and now we know for sure down here by where I live, Fort Bliss is picked to take part in high-tech anti-drone program. Well, who would that be against in the Southwest? Well, the cartels. Because even though we supposedly took down their infrastructure or regime changed them, if you will, just like we did in Iran, they're still running, just like Iran. Still have problems. People are still dying. Drugs are still moving. Human trafficking is still happening. They claim that there's less stuff coming across the border, but I have a feeling that's because they've gone back to the old school ways of smuggling that gets them less caught. Because here recently they were pretty brazen about it, because literally our government and administration invited them in, basically said, come on down to the Price is Right and get some digital soup kitchen. But
Well, that's the whole thing is they're going to sell us on all these other things at the same time, along with the cryptocurrency. And what's the end result of all that? Building out more data centers.
Right.
Like all roads lead to Rome on that. It's just about building out the data, because there's so much opposition to a data center being built right now.
Right.
Now,
And now
if you can give me 3 excuses why there's 3 separate smaller parts that all need the same exact thing, there you go.
Well, just think about it. I mean, even last week's headlines, they planning on having AI control the traffic in California, which obviously is going to spread to any metropolitan area anywhere in the world, basically. And you're going to have AI controlling the air traffic controlling and where all the flights and deliveries go. And then you're going to have that tied into a system that's keeping track of every last car and person, the flock camera system, which goes, all of that information goes into these data centers. And then you're going to have military operations and black budget projects and, criminal activity, black market activity, and all of that is going to be concentrated and needs to be kept track of. And that's what these data centers literally are for. It's the setting up of the bars, basically, on the prison planet. You won't be able to think soon. And I literally mean that. I don't want to get too woo-woo out there, but there's machines already that can actually see what's in your head, to write out what you're thinking, to see the physiological changes that you're making, to know whether or not you're lying, telling the truth, if you're making things up, all of that stuff. And that's all going to be integrated into this flock camera system network. So all the CCTV cameras will all be fed into AIs that are evaluating all of these various things that are going to be installed on these. And yeah, people think it's just license plate readers. No. It's massive data collection on every single person, legal or not legal. And then what are they going to be doing over in the Middle East? They're going to be setting up a new network just like the one that we're describing. And that's why they have to flatten it. You got to destroy it to rebuild it back up. There's no signs of anything slowing down in the Middle East at all. And then we got
that's the whole plan, to turn off the world's food supply. Like they can talk to the blue in their face, and you see this up and down. It's like an undulating sine wave. So what I'm looking at, if you plug the news into a sine wave pattern, you can see how the news is almost at its peak at the bottom, when it's going to ramp up again, and when it's peak at the top, when it's going to ramp. It's a sine wave of wars on, wars off, wars on,
Right.
wars off. But they're just going to keep this slow grind of wars on, wars off. And what is this all doing at the same time? It's limiting fertilizers, it's limiting diesel fuel, it's limiting all the chemicals we need for agriculture, it's limiting the plastics we need to pack our food.
right.
And this is going to continue on.
And then, here soon, all they have to do is increase all these operations around the world to the point where they're telling their own governments, including the U.S., that, even though that there's low amounts of this in circulation, we need priority over those supplies. Because that's what government does every time. So if things actually go in the bad direction, they're just going to seize everything. And how bad could it get? I mean, we're going to seize this and exploit it.
That bad, yes.
Completely ran out of fuel. Blames the U.S. embargo. However, they were already doing their own things there that were causing this. And I can't even imagine what it's like right there. So you remember Haiti after the earthquake, followed by the hurricane, and then everybody running in there from all over the world to exploit stuff in the name of helping. That's what I picture is about to happen to Cuba. We even have our president joking that we could just make it either Venezuela or Cuba, either one, the 51st state, and just start exploiting stuff and pull the people out of, the situation they've been in.
I wonder how many of those classic cars are going to get stolen out of there.
Right. The movie industry probably move right in there and say, let me buy all that stuff.
Yeah, right. We'll take that 1950s. We'll take that 940s.
Well, like
That's still functional, yeah.
If they were allowed to grow things, because I know that they have this little, it's like a sheet that says how much stuff they can grow, how many chickens they can have, how many eggs they can have. All that stuff is regulated by the government. And
Per person.
Yes. And if you get caught doing things outside of that, obviously you're going to be in trouble. So it's not like they got massive fields of stuff growing right now by hand and animal. However, I think that they could get rolling with companies investing, and one of those right away would be the tobacco industry, oil, obviously, and probably data centers. And the reason I say that is because what's right in the middle of our Gulf? What's a strategic location? If you're going to control the Western Hemisphere, you'd have to have Cuba.
Yeah, you would, right there in the center. That'd be the perfect control island for anything coming in and out of the Gulf, would it not?
Right. You would have complete control on the Panama Canal and anything coming from South America or across from Africa.
Yeah, that entire trade route would be it'd be no different than putting a cannon, as they did in Puerto Rico or any island that you've seen across the Caribbean, where they put cannons on the hilltops to control. There's just a little bit better control with the missiles and things, but yeah, what about this article here? Now, just remind me, last week, how many people had this thing? 3 or 4, and now it's 41.
There was 9 from the boat, okay, but now there's supposedly 41.
And okay, so next week, what's your predictive number? Well, let's pretend we're Polymarket. We should start our own bet on Polymarket of what the next week's number will be as of midnight on the add 7 days from now.
I can't believe they skipped 33. I probably just missed it.
Yeah, we did. We missed somewhere. So if you think it's 40, so it went from 4 to 41, that's a 10x increase. Could we predict 415 people by next week, or 410?
It's possible, or this is just another thing like the Ebola scare. You remember when they brought over the people that had Ebola and then let them go home and stuff like that?
When was that?
They had a guy in Houston that they knew was Ebola positive. They let him out of the hospital. He went home where he was staying with some people in Houston that were like, I guess, extended family or something. He lived with them. He got sick. He died. And I remember it crystal clear because this is a disease that's spread by bodily fluid. And they had people out there with a high pressure hose spraying stuff off the pavement out there. And I'm just thinking, oh, nice, spray that in the whole neighborhood. Then, I never know with these things. You really never know. Not only is it legit, on its face about the fear mongering about it spreading, but number 2, could it be possibly some kind of new potential hazard? We know that's very possible, but at the same time, they already have, vaccines rolling out for this thing. So,
well, for me, I'm trying to connect this, that it's not about the virus itself, but it's the carrier of the rats, the mice, that's going to be connected to the food supply, that's then going to constrict global grain deliveries. Because this point already, looking for the opportunities in this. The disruptions in our food so far are going to take us into shortages of food across the planet at the end of the year, to the point where citizens are going to get angry that the food's going to get so incredible expensive that they're going to demand that you can't send any food out of the country. But then what's going to be the excuse why governments can't honor their trade agreements and why suddenly, they can't export any longer? And the mice are in the grain.
What I find funny about this is that once it was detected, they realized that it was a strain that sometimes takes weeks to show symptoms. And yet they continued along their way and let everybody go everywhere. So I'm just saying, think about it. That's what the big deal is because here in a few weeks, that number of 41 might just all of a sudden, they might tell you 1,000 people are dead. or 1,000 people sick, 100 people dead. Who knows? I mean, from what happened in 2020, I wouldn't put it past them. But if you remember back in the day, I did have a theory that maybe later something more deadly might spread, and that may have been literally planned. I'm not going to get too kooky here, but think about it. If you were to do that, you would want people to scoff at the first round, the beta test. You would want them to scoff at it. You would find all the people that are not capitulators, or that's not the right word for it. The people that follow orders, the order followers. All the people that are not that would scoff at the idea. They wouldn't, follow mandates. They wouldn't do this. And then the next time it rolled around, they'd be like, you tricked me last time, but not again. But this time it might be serious. And all of those same people would, they would just take it for granted and think it was like last time. No big deal. I mean, that's the nightmare scenario, that something real rolls around, and because the public has been lied to and manipulated so much, they wouldn't take it seriously.
Yeah, that's going to be the same with the monetary shift too. Like not a lot of people are going to take this seriously. They'll be like, nothing's changed. It's still a dollar. It's called a dollar. What are you talking about? I can still buy. I still can go to my bank. I can still do things. My FedNow account. Oh, what's that? Is that something new? We're getting it from multiple angles and then the news. Well, it's telling you to start panicking about food prices. Before, even as of 2 weeks ago or last week, it's like, don't worry about the food. The food's fine. Everything's fine. And then this week, it's definitely not fine.
Right.
So, it's this whole complacency thing or non-complacency. Just look to see where the media is trying to steer people, I guess is the best term.
Well, it seems like, right now or as of today, they want everybody to be scared that we just had some kind of super bad meeting with China. All kinds of, drama was happening. People weren't letting into the rooms. Supposedly a White House staffer was trampled by Chinese reporters. Secret Service agent was kept out of official events. An American journalist were prevented from joining the presidential motorcade. And I believe a Secret Service person was disarmed also. So some kind of weird stuff's going on over there.
You're not allowed to have firearms there because they know it'll be. Well, they took the firearms away, in almost every nation on the planet. So this was very, 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 very tight in China, like super tight.
Right.
Even if you call it one round, you're going to prison for like life. It's not even having one. It's just if you have a single round, you're gone. Your family's gone. Everybody's just related to you is gone. It's the way it works there.
And I don't even, it seems like the media really wanted you to think that, things were going crazy over there, but I probably don't think it is. I think that they're just doing this to try to embarrass basically the administration over here, making them think like, they didn't have any power there. They were kind of demasculated when they went there, and China's running the show.
Well, you're going to have this political theater to switch the entire global money supply. Like you can't, it doesn't work unless everybody's in on it and the entire stage show. Can you imagine going to like a New York stage play and then only half the people are pretending to be actors on the stage?
Right.
It just doesn't work. You have to have the entire cast in on it. And I think we're looking at the entire cast here.
Well, what do you think? Because, I've read and heard basically, and most of it it's by proxy. It's kind of hearsay because unless you live in China and you're really inside the internal workings of the real data or what's going on, you wouldn't know exactly. But there is a lot of rumors that there's political turmoil, that there's a lot of issues from population to keeping a grip on society there, all kinds of different problems. But according to them, they're not worried about it. It's us that's in decline. It's our empire that's in decline. Or maybe, the real truth is that both empires are in decline. And that's what the major panic is. And they have to reorganize. And that's kind of what I was alluding to earlier. There may be a deal struck to kick the can down the road. Basically, if everybody gives concessions to let the East have the East and the West have the West, and Africa and Europe get divided down the middle.
Totally agree. And the reason it can be done is because of the Middle East closure of Hormuz Straits. Like that being a pivotal part of the whole strategy of this to unfold. And at the same time, bringing in the new monetary system and the new cryptocurrency system at the exact same time all this energy turmoil is happening. that the Clarity Act's being voted in. Like it's all seemed to be too square. There's too many large things happening at the same time that are pushing and completely rearranging society all at the same time. Like just the statistical possibilities of that, of even one of those happening, let alone three of them at the same time. Like, come on now, you can't get played that badly, can you?
Nah. We just need to worry about the UFOs, man.
The UFOs. Is that an UFO? It looks like a helicopter to me.
Well, that little black speck down at the bottom right there is actually the UFO in question. Now, I went
so clear. I cannot look at the aliens waving at me, dude.
Right. Well, they're all pretty much that. Remember, I told you, I predicted this. What you're going to get is a bunch of grainy, low resolution, FLIR footage of things you never will be able to tell what is. Not even if you had the best analyzing software, because there's just not enough pixels to determine anything, not from the original, but especially not these downgraded lower resolution copies that they gave the public. And almost all of them, just a dot. This one's kind of interesting.
Like a real photo. Wow.
Well, you get there. This is the exact same thing we get whenever, we get to look back at the Earth, or we get to look at a black hole, or any of those things. Artist rendering of what happened. But now I'm not going to scoff at all of this too much, because I myself have seen some stuff that would have to be, not just next level, but next couple centuries ahead of what they're showing us, myself with my own eyes. Now, whether it's alien or not, I don't know. However, this is talking about stuff going in and out of wormholes, basically, or in and out of our perception, or in and out of our dimension. And then here's you a TR-3B over the moon from the Apollo photos, or something of three little dots.
You mean Apollo back in the day, Apollo?
Yeah, this is from the Apollo 17.
TRB-3, that's like modern technology. So they would easily have to be 100 years ahead of what they're showing us.
Well, if that's what that is, or I don't know what it is.
Like a TRB, every one of those triangular shapes, I always have seen them as TRBs.
Anyway, there's a bunch of footage. You can watch it, but I'll be honest in my opinion, because that's all I have. Most of the footage that I watched, it looked about like what I would picture if a FLIR camera was watching my DJI drone flying at 50 miles an hour over a neighborhood. You would just see like a little hot speck flying across. It wouldn't be big enough. You couldn't explain what it was. It takes really hard right turns and all of that stuff.
And the UFO disclosure layers on top of all of these things happening.
We have to have a one world government.
We must, of course. And it comes into a one world currency system.
Or they could even, if they're really smart, they might just give us two different kinds of aliens. One to side with China and the East, and one to side with America and the West. And then we'll have a whole new perceived, Cold War of things we can never prove or verify from the ground level down here. But it's okay. You'll get your digital soup card kitchen. You can go get your little half pound of rice for the month.
Aliens be kind of hotties for males and females. They're going to have to try to be like, ooh, they're still hot. I'll side with them. Like Captain Kirk with the green girls and stuff up in the old 60s episodes. They still looked human, but they were green. They were hot. Right. You know what I mean? They can't have something that's dripping off and like snot dripping off them and be like, I want to side with that thing. Like,
yeah. Well, I don't think too many people are going to want to mate with the mantis being, knowing what mantises are going to eat off your head afterwards.
A bottle of tequila, who cares? Eat the worm, dude. Eat the worm. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. The Civilization Cycle podcast every Thursday night, 10 p.m. to midnight, right here on Rumble, YouTube, and we're going to rebroadcast tomorrow on Revolution Radio. For those of you listening out there, thank you for joining us. buymeacoffee.com/Civilization Cycle. If you'd like to support the program and keep us on air broadcasting, cover our running costs here for software, etc., and also the Civilization Cycle podcast website, civilizationcycle.com. I'll give you the show notes. 10 bullet points of things we talked about tonight so you can run back in and do some of your own research, share with others, and start the conversation. Appreciate your time, valuable time.